40 obsolete technologies. All right, raise your hand if you remember the good old days. The days before instant streaming and cloud storage. If you were born before we spent hours rewinding VHS tapes with a pencil, or if you actually had to dial up the internet and wait, then this one's for you. Today, we're taking a trip down memory lane to revisit some of the most iconic pieces of technology that shaped our lives. First up, the floppy disk. These little squares of plastic were the original saviors of our digital lives. Starting in the 1970s, floppy disks evolved from the chunky 8-inch versions that could store a measly 80 kilobytes to the sleeker 3.5-inch disks that held a whopping 1.44 megabytes. That's right, megabytes. But let's be real, by the 90s, trying to install Adobe Photoshop with over a dozen disks felt like running a marathon. And don't even get me started on how easily they corrupted. RIP floppy disks. You live on only as the save icon on our screens. VHS tapes, the OG home video experience. Whether it was recording your favorite TV shows, capturing family memories, or renting the latest blockbuster from the video store, VHS was king. But who else remembers the frustration of renting a tape only to find it wasn't rewound? Or worse, your sibling recording over your favorite movie? By the mid-2000s, DVDs took over and VHS quietly faded into obscurity. But hey, at least we'll always have those grainy home videos of awkward family gatherings. Next up, the cassette tape. These magnetic wonders brought us music, mixtapes, and endless hours of rewinding with a pencil. Introduced in the 1960s, cassettes were the go-to for portable audio. But by the 90s, CDs stole the spotlight, and cassettes became the forgotten middle child of music formats. Still, there's something magical about the click of a cassette being inserted and the hiss of analog audio. And let's not forget the pain of a chewed-up tape. Truly a tragedy of the times. Remember fax machines? The originals end it now technology? For decades, these noisy machines were the backbone of business communication. But let's be honest, faxing was a pain. The screeching tones, the paper jams, and the sheer inconvenience of needing a phone line. Email and the internet eventually made fax machines obsolete, but they'll always hold a special place in our hearts as the tech that made us say, "Did it go through?" Portable DVD players were supposed to be the ultimate travel companion. But let's face it, they were bulky, had terrible battery life, and required you to carry around a stack of discs. Fast forward to today, and streaming on our phones has made these clunky devices a thing of the past. Still, there's something oddly charming about popping in a DVD and watching it on a tiny screen during a road trip. Before laptops and word processors, there was the typewriter. This mechanical marvel revolutionized writing, from novels to office memos. But let's be real, correcting a typo was a nightmare, and the noise could wake the neighbors. Today, typewriters are mostly relics of the past, but they're still beloved by writers and collectors for their tactile charm and nostalgic appeal. Let's talk about Game Boy versus Game Gear, the ultimate handheld showdown. Nintendo's Game Boy, with its iconic green screen and addictive games like Tetris, dominated the market. Meanwhile, Sega's Game Gear offered color graphics, but drained batteries faster than you could say Sonic. Both are now relics of gaming history, but they paved the way for the portable consoles we love today. Who else spent hours playing under the covers with a flashlight? Unlike most of the tech on this list, vinyl refuses to die. First introduced in the late 1800s, vinyl has seen a resurgence in recent years, with audiophiles swearing by its warm, rich sound. There's something magical about dropping the needle and hearing that crackle before the music starts. Vinyl proves that sometimes old tech just hits different. Laserdiscs, the OG of high-quality home video. These giant discs were like DVDs on steroids, offering better picture and sound quality than VHS. But let's be real, they were the size of a pizza and could only hold about an hour of video per side. By the time DVDs rolled around, Laserdiscs were already on their way out. Still, they'll always be remembered as the tech that tried to give us a cinematic experience at home. Before texting, there were pagers. These little devices were the ultimate call-me-back tool. Doctors, business people, and even teenagers in the 90s relied on them. But let's be honest, decoding those numeric messages was like solving a secret code. 911 meant call me ASAP, and 143 meant I love you. Pagers may be obsolete now, but they were the original notification system. Overhead projectors, the classroom MVP. These simple machines turned boring lectures into a light show. Teachers would scribble on transparent sheets, and we'd watch in awe as their handwriting magically appeared on the wall. Sure, they've been replaced by digital projectors, but there's something nostalgic about that faint hum and the smell of dry erase markers. Remember phone books? These chunky directories were the Google of their time. Need a plumber? Look it up in the yellow pages. Want to prank call someone? The white pages had you covered. But let's be real, they were heavy, outdated, and basically useless once the internet came along. Still, they make great booster seats for kids. Mini discs, Sony's attempt to revolutionize portable music. These tiny discs could hold up to 45 hours of audio and were way cooler than CDs. But by the time they hit the market, MP3 players were already on the rise. Mini discs never really caught on, but they'll always be remembered as the tech that tried to bridge the gap between cassettes and digital music. The sound of the 90s internet? Dial-up modems? These noisy devices connected us to the World Wide Web, but at a cost. If someone picked up the phone, you were instantly disconnected. And don't even get me started on how long it took to load a single image. Still, that screeching sound is forever etched into our memories. The Sony Walkman, the original portable music revolution. This little device let us take our music anywhere, from the bus to the gym. Sure, cassette tapes got chewed up and the batteries died quickly, but the Walkman changed the way we listen to music. It's the granddaddy of the iPod and Spotify. The Discman? Sony's answer to portable CDs. It was great, as long as you didn't move. One step and your favorite song would skip like crazy. Still, it was a step up from the Walkman, and it paved the way for skip-free MP3 players. Who else remembers carrying a Discman in their backpack, trying not to jostle it? Betamax versus VHS, the ultimate format war. Betamax was technically superior with better picture quality, but VHS won the battle thanks to longer recording times and cheaper prices. Betamax became the underdog we all rooted for, but in the end, it faded into obscurity. Still, it's a reminder that sometimes better tech doesn't always win. Daisy wheel printers, the noisy ancestors of modern printers. These machines were basically typewriters hooked up to a computer. They were slow, loud, and could only print text, but they got the job done. Today, they're a relic of the early days of computing, but they'll always be remembered for their distinctive clack-clack-clack sound. The Sega Game Gear, the colorful rival to the Game Boy. It had a backlit screen and could play Master System games, but it ate batteries like crazy. 6 AAs for just a few hours of gameplay? No thanks. Still, it was a cool piece of tech that tried to compete with Nintendo's dominance. The Nintendo 64, the last of the cartridge-based consoles. With games like Super Mario 64 and GoldenEye 007, the N64 defined a generation of gaming. Sure, the controller was weirdly shaped, and cartridges were expensive, but the N64 will always hold a special place in our hearts. Film cameras, the original way to capture memories. You had to carefully frame your shot because every click cost money. And don't even get me started on waiting days to see if your photos turned out. Digital cameras and smartphones have made film obsolete, but there's still something magical about the tactile experience of winding film and hearing the shutter click. Polaroid cameras, the instant gratification of photography. These cameras let you see your photos seconds after taking them, which felt like magic in the pre-digital age. Sure, the film was expensive and the photos faded over time, but Polaroids are still beloved for their retro charm. Who else remembers shaking the photo to make it develop faster? Standalone GPS devices, the original turn left in 500 feet. Before smartphones, these gadgets were a lifesaver for road trips, but let's be real, they were clunky, slow, and often led you in circles. Now, with Google Maps on our phones, standalone GPS units are pretty much obsolete. But hey, at least they didn't drain your phone battery. Calculators, the original math cheat code. Before smartphones, these little devices were a lifesaver for students and professionals alike. Sure, they've been replaced by apps, but there's something satisfying about pressing physical buttons and seeing the numbers pop up on a tiny screen. The NES, the console that saved the gaming industry. With iconic games like Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda, the NES brought gaming into millions of homes. It's the reason Nintendo is still a household name today. Who else remembers blowing into the cartridges to make them work? The Atari 2600, the granddaddy of home gaming. This console introduced us to classics like Pong, Asteroids, and Pac-Man. Sure, the graphics were basic, but the Atari 2600 paved the way for the gaming industry we know today. It's a true piece of gaming history. CRT TVs, the chunky screens of our childhood. These heavy beasts were the standard for decades, with their curved screens and fuzzy picture quality. But let's be real, they were a pain to move, and degaussing was a weirdly satisfying ritual. Today, flat-screen TVs have made CRTs obsolete, but they'll always be remembered for their nostalgic charm. Paper maps, the original GPS. Before smartphones, these folded wonders were essential for road trips. But let's be honest, they were a pain to read and even harder to refold. Today, digital maps have made paper maps obsolete, but they'll always be a symbol of adventure and exploration. Disposable cameras, the ultimate "what's on this thing" experience. These single-use cameras were perfect for vacations and parties, but you had to wait days to see your photos. Today, with smartphones, disposable cameras feel like a relic of the past. But hey, at least they didn't run out of battery. Encyclopedias, the original Wikipedia. These massive books were the go-to source for knowledge before the internet. But let's be real, they were expensive, heavy, and outdated the moment they were printed. Today, Google has made encyclopedias obsolete, but they'll always be a symbol of the pre-digital age. The clapper, the original smart home device. This nifty gadget let you turn lights on and off with a simple clap. Sure, it wasn't as advanced as today's smart home tech, but it was a fun novelty. Who else remembers clapping wildly to get it to work? Calculator watches, the ultimate 80s flex. These wrist-mounted gadgets let you do math on the go, which felt like the height of futuristic tech. Today, they're a quirky relic of the past, but they'll always be remembered as the original wearable tech. PS2 ports, the original way to connect your mouse and keyboard. These fiddly little ports were color-coded, but good luck plugging them in without looking. Today, USB has made PS2 ports obsolete, but they'll always be remembered as a quirky piece of computing history. The iPod, the device that changed how we listen to music. With its sleek design and massive storage, the iPod made carrying thousands of songs in your pocket a reality. But with streaming services like Spotify, iPods have become a thing of the past. Still, they'll always be remembered as the gadget that put 1,000 songs in your pocket. 8-track tapes, the original car stereo. These chunky tapes were popular in the 60s and 70s, but they were clunky and prone to jamming. By the 80s, cassettes had taken over and 8 tracks faded into obscurity. Still, they'll always be remembered as a quirky piece of music history. Before smartphones, there was the Palm Pilot. This handheld device was the go-to for managing contacts, schedules, and notes. It was like carrying around a digital planner, and for many, it was the pinnacle of tech at the time. But let's be real, the moment you tried to use a stylus on that tiny screen to write anything longer than a grocery list, it wasn't pretty. By the mid-2000s, the Palm Pilot was a distant memory, replaced by phones that could do so much more. Still, there's a part of us that misses that satisfying tap of the stylus. Remember the glory of printing something on a laser printer? These bad boys were fast, efficient, and didn't leave your fingers covered in ink like the old dot matrix printers. Whether it was school reports, work documents, or just your shopping list, laser printers became the gold standard for print quality. Sure, inkjet printers took over in the 2000s, but there was something magical about watching those pages shoot out with perfect text. The high-tech buzz and smooth, crisp text, they were the printer kings of their time. Sony's attempt to bring the world into the digital age, the mini disc player, was kind of like the middle ground between cassette tapes and CDs. These little discs could hold up to 80 minutes of digital audio, much like a CD, but way more portable. The quality was decent, but it never really caught on, with MP3 players swooping in to steal its thunder. Still, if you ever owned one, you know it was a unique piece of tech that never really got its day in the sun. The clicks and whirs as it read the disc were like sweet little techno melodies in their own right. Ah, the Nokia 3310, aka the brick phone. This legendary device was as much about durability as it was about calling and texting. You could drop it, throw it, or even use it to defend yourself, and it would still work like a charm. It was also home to one of the most iconic mobile games of all time, Snake. Let's face it, we all spent hours trying to beat our high score. With a battery life that lasted days and the simplest interface ever, the Nokia 3310 was the phone that taught us the true meaning of basic but effective. It might be a relic now, but you couldn't break it if you tried. And there you have it. These gadgets may be obsolete, but they'll always hold a special place in our hearts. Which one do you miss the most? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a trip down memory lane. Until next time, keep the nostalgia alive.